Hello again, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So we had a big update today. I want to make a video on, and I'm decided to move ahead with some of my strategy ideas. Even though at present, with the terrain feature kind of being in this weird limbo state of rules, they may or may not be viable, but they're just still funny to talk about. But this video is, when you clicked on it, is about the Dread Saurian. The Dread Saurian dropped today. You can take a look at my Dread Saurian. While the pictures flash by in some bits of my other army. I only ever used him once in the old rules. I had a lot of fun with him. I put him in a Dracothian tail detachment so that way he could beam down to anywhere in the battlefield he want. And of course, in the very first game I used him, when he had a 7-inch charge, thanks to the cogs, he rolled twice with a hero to make him reroll, and I don't know why my screen is white. My apologies, it's strange. But to continue, he failed his charge and then got absolutely murdered by archers. I ended up winning the game anyway, but it was pretty funny to see. So let's talk about him because he has changed quite a bit from his old iteration. So if you have not seen the rules as of yet, they are on the GW website, and they are pretty straightforward. I mean, there's it looks relatively the same in some areas and completely different in others. Sorry, I'm trying to buy time to just put it in the thing here, because now that I see my things broken, I'd rather just show you the rules than mess around with the screenshots that are apparently broken. My apologies. Nope, not you. I want this one. There we go. And put that up to the front. And there we go. So, let's look at this War Scroll. So, the biggest change, probably you'll notice right away, is that he has 35 wounds now. That was from 16 to 35. Now, keep in mind, he has 510 points. So, he is 10 points more expensive than, like, Catacross is the one unit I know of that's 500 points, and is a single big model. So you can kind of, sort of, not really compare him to that. But Catacross has 20 wounds, and this guy has 15 more. It's almost an entire second Catacross. He has a 4-up save now, which is worse than before, but I think that's just in reaction to the fact that you have access to things like Control Fate, which is the Starseer spell that adds +1 to your armor. It's old Mystic Shield, and nothing stopping you from putting the actual Mystic Shield on, so you can get him to a 3+ rerolling 1 save with some other things. So I don't think the 4-up save is that big a loss. He's Bravery 8, not that big a deal, being a single giant model, and he moves 10 inches at the start. Now, one thing to also keep in mind with this guy, as you probably saw with some of my pictures before I swapped over, was that this guy's base is absolutely enormous. To give you an idea, the long ways is just about a little under 12 inches. It's essentially 12 inches. And then about 7 or 6 inches the shorter way. It's an oval. And that is a real kind of pain to work with on the game table. Now, you should be able to at least have some areas where your Dread Saurian should go. But, there's going to be, I don't know, half to more percent of the board that this guy can't even physically reach. But, he works in the middle of the table and he deletes anything by there. So let's talk about him. So when we look at the damage output he has up here, we'll zoom in a little bit on his attacks. His attacks are, well, there's no way to sugarcoat this, rather pitiful. His big jaws, his gargantuan jaws, which you would get an extra attack for in Coalesced, are 3 attacks base, 4s in Coalesced, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, 2 rend, and 6 damage at full health. Then his Raking Claws are 6 attacks that hit on 2s, that's really nice. Wounding on 3s, -1, 2 damage each. And then his Armored Tail is 1 attack at a 4 and 3, -1 d6 damage. That Armored Tail is not going to be the star of the show for sure. That is a little bit more damage than a Carnosaur, but not by that much. In fact, I think even a Old Blood on Carnosaur might outdamage this guy more times, because if you average everything out, the Carnosaur can easily get to 2s and 2s on all of its attacks. The Dread Saurian sadly does not have any skink or source keywords, so a lot of the buffs in the book do not affect him. Just really the generic ones, and there aren't a whole lot of generic buffs in the book. And it was interesting to kind of research when looking at this guy. I was like, well, what can buff this guy? It's like, well, not that much. So the attack's damage is not all that high, but he can do a lot of work, and that comes from his abilities. So, his first ability, Arcane Glyphs, is actually a really interesting thing, that he actually ignores spell effects on 6s. And if there's a slam within 12 inches of him, he ignores them on 4s. This is actually pretty cool. It's a 4 if it's by a slam, so you can't really rely on it, but it can really save you when your opponent throws the big D6 mortal wound damage on this thing. Try and get rid of it, or try and at least start hurting it, and it's just not going to be effective half the time. So that's cool. Obliterating Charge, though, is where the Dread Saurian's damage is really actually going to come out for his 510 point cost. Because after he makes a charge move, he rolls a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch of the model. 2 up, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds if it's a monster, or a 6+ if it's not a monster. I take this back, actually. I misread it before. I thought it was for each within what? Roll for each enemy unit. You roll only 1 dice per model, and you only do D6 or D3 mortals. That's actually rather disappointing. I thought it was each model within 1 inch, you would do D6 mortals onto the unit, but that is obviously not what's going on here. So his damage is not very good whatsoever, and there aren't a whole lot of ways to make it much better. Then he has Death Throws, which if he is ever slain, which I don't know, I think 35 wounds on a 4-up save, that's going to be a little difficult. But before removing it from the battlefield, you roll dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of it. That's not a monster. On a 4-up, they suffer D3 mortals. Again, the damage is just not really there. Then you have Terror, which is the same thing all the other big dinos have. They subtract 1 from bravery characteristic, and these abilities do not stack. They even kind of pre-put that in there, because they say every enemy units all get suffer from this within 3 of any friendly units with this ability, and so the ability only gets affecting a unit once, which I find that a little disappointing. I would think Terror would be something much more impactful than just -1 bravery. But GW and their bravery, they have bravery rules, but they really don't like making it that impactful. Which, you can say you like it, you can say you don't. It's up to you, it's your opinion. Then finally, his Roar of Ruin, which, by the way, is a really cool sounding ability, is that once per start of Battleshock phase, you can say this model will use its Roar of Ruin, and if you do so, you have the bravery characteristic of enemy units rounding up that are within 12 inches model to the end of the phase. And with this designer's note here, they do say that if it is affected by both the Roar of Ruin and Terror abilities, you first half it, rounding up, then you subtract. So it's order of operations, you multiply, divide first, then you add, subtract. So that makes sense. And just for all the buffs, because they're not really a ton that can get at this guy, you can, like I said earlier, get him +1 save with rerolling 1s with Mystic Shield and Control Fate. You can give him a 6-up ignore all damage with a Astrolith Bearer. But the thing with the Astrolith Bearer is that you literally have to have the Astrolith Bearer's base basically on this guy's base, right on the edge, because one direction is a whole 12 inches, so if you need to be wholly within 12, the guy needs to be right on top of this thing. And then you can make him fly and reroll his saves against shooting attacks, which I think that is what you'll probably see put on him a lot. That's the Slant command ability. And then when you are a Thunder Lizard, he can be 37 wounds, but I do want to state, I think him being coalesced is probably the best way to go, just to give him a little bit more attack with his big jaws. And you're also -1 damage, which on a 35 wound model is going to be just such a pain to chew through. An absolute pain. There are armies like Witches, and one of my friends at the store plays the City Sigma army with all Wanderer bowmen, and they come out with these just machine gun bowmen out of the woods or whatever their ability is, and they can just delete things, and it gets pretty scary. In fact, in my first game, that's what happened to my Dread Saurian. Come to think of it, I was just playing a game with the new rules and had that come up. I obviously wasn't playing with Dread Saurian, but I digress a little bit. For 510 points, this guy is not going to be doing a lot of damage for you for his points cost. You can get his hits to be rerolling ones, by the way, with Hand of Glory from a skiing wizard. But it's just, the damage is just so bad. And I thought, with my misunderstanding of how Obliterating Charge worked, I thought, oh, well, if he charges into big blobs of things, then he can just do a ton of mortals, probably clearing that squad right there, and that's where his use would come in. That he can just charge in, kill the unit in the charge, and then he doesn't really have to attack, and then when he fights the big monsters, he has to kind of use his attacks on them. But he's just doing D6 mortals on the charge or D3 mortals on monsters, so not very scary whatsoever. You can get the big money D6 mortals on a big unit, or you can get 3 mortals on a monster, but that's a dime a dozen in this new Seraphon book. I'm a little sad. I would have, if for 510 points, I would almost increase his jaw attacks by like 2 more, maybe make him hit on 3s, and maybe do 4 more Raking Claw attacks because he used to have 10, and do a couple, 2 tail attacks, and they hit on 3s or something, and then you can make that the big swingy thing. Sure, if you really want the tail attack, GW, which it seems you do, but the damage output is just not that good. I'll probably bring him. I don't see why not. It's fun. I own him, as you saw in the pictures. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I almost forgot. His Celestial Conjuration is 50 points. So, in other words, he is never being summoned. When you're generating D3 for Slan General and the Astrolith, and then for every first spell you're giving up per Slan or Oracle, the summoning list that I'm coming up with, the most I can really squeeze in and feel legitimate about it is like, well, I have an Oracle, I have Croak, and I have a Slan. And then I have the Astrolith Bearer. Any more than that, and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, no, it's just so much of a point sink for not that much reward, because everything is just D3, so you essentially get 5 D3 points. That's about 10 points, so you're summoning him on average 10 points on 5 D3. So if you were to not summon anything for 5 turns, you could summon him turn 5. And then what's he going to do? Nothing. Nothing important. And I'm sad to say that. I'm sure people find use for him. And, I was about to go on a tangent saying, well, everyone's going to put him in Thunder Lizards. I actually don't think that's really necessary. Coalesce certainly gives him a boost, but in either army, he is just a big tanky thing. The 2 wounds on going from 37 to 35 wounds is not that big a change. It's a huge change for our smaller monsters that go from 10 to 12. That's what is that? That's a 20% increase. And then 2 wounds on this guy is it's a little less than 7% change. So it is not that big a deal for him. So, but that's the Dread Saurian, guys. I was hoping for a little bit better, but Forge World right now just seems to... They're so weird with their rules writing right now. Like, I play Tyranids and the Dimacaron, I hope gets a rework but ever since the first rule said, Dimacaron has just sucked. And so, they seem to not really... They just underpower their stuff, which is strange. Some things are super powerful, and then they do scrolls like this, and it's like, what are you doing? There's this gigantic lizard that's 3 times the size of a Carnosaur model, if not 4 times, and it only does this in damage? It's, like I said, because a Carnosaur has 3 attacks that hit on 4s, but are +1 to hit things that are less than 7 wounds, 3 to wound, 1 rend, but 5 damage. So you get an additional rend and additional damage for twice the points. No, not worth it. Not worth it. So sad save affairs for Dread Saurian. Stay tuned for my channel. I'm gonna go to one of my wacky list previews that may or may not be feasible with if ever our terrain feature gets FAQ'd. We shall see. So please stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll look forward to talking to you next time.